we came across a little interesting LinkedIn post about the biggest mistake marketers make. And I think this could be a great topic for us to cover. We'll have probably very differing perspectives. So I kind of want to dive into this a little bit. And I have a feeling I'm on a slightly different take than you. So I think the biggest mistake marketers make, and this isn't like an individual as a marketer, this is probably marketing teams and organizations and even companies, what they get wrong in marketing. And this is coming from, man, I've audited dozens of B2B companies now over the last few years. And there's one thing I see, and this is 99% of marketers or marketing teams and companies, and this is a very tough pill to swallow, which is they actually don't have a scalable growth lever. And I actually think that's the biggest mistake marketers make. They do not have a scalable growth lever. Their only thing they're actually trying to scale is leads. And most marketers get in this false struggle of this tactic-focused marketing that is centered around trying to scale leads. And I've seen this time and time again where I see hundreds and even up to like 1,000 plus demo requests that are coming in, and there's low win rates. And it actually goes back to marketing has yet to figure out how to scale revenue. And this is honestly 99% of marketing organizations that I audit. I've yet to really see this. And it goes back to kind of what we're reading on LinkedIn, where everybody's talking like ABM, right? ABM's dead and lead base is dead. And the reality is the reason those things aren't dead is because marketers have yet to figure out how to actually scale marketing and actually drive growth. And I've realized as I've audited these companies, that's a tough pill to swallow for a marketing team, to sit there and say, you have zero idea how to scale revenue. The only thing you know how to scale is demo requests, and they get stuck in this tactic-focused marketing that I call tugboat, right? They plan a campaign, they get a bump in leads, it goes back down. They plan another campaign, they get a bump in leads, and it goes back down. But they have no way and no understanding how to scale revenue. And that's the biggest mistake that marketing teams are making right now.
All right. You coming with some, yeah, you solid, man. You know, you're coming with something pretty good. I mean, on a Friday morning here, this is nice. So what would be a growth lever in your opinion here then?
So great question. And to be clear, how I define a growth lever, it's scalable, predictable, up into the right growth, right? And it has to be centered around actual revenue and pipeline. So a lot of people get stuck when I mention tactics, right? That's all they scale. We're going to scale paid search. We're going to scale our social ads. We're going to scale content, right? None of that is actually like scaling revenue and pipeline. Where we focus though, and what we try to focus on is what we believe is there's a combination of things that actually drive growth, which typically center around messaging. So when we focus and start an engagement with clients, our first 6 months is around 2 points: friction removal and messaging. And those are the first two combinations we look for to actually start identifying how to scale revenue growth, because that's the biggest driver for revenue.
It's good stuff, man. I think, you know, I wouldn't go at you and say you're wrong, you know. I would say, though, that it sounds to me like there's a lot baked into that. So if you had to go one layer deeper on it and say, so what is the mistake then, right? Like, what is it that the marketing leader in that organization is not doing to get to that point?
Yeah, so you're going to bring up something interesting, and I'll probably open a can of worms. And I've learned something about a lot of marketing leaders right now, which is a lot of marketing leaders are really great at internal politicking and marketing, and they're really bad at everything else when it comes to marketing. So when I talk about this false struggle, that's what I think most marketing leaders, and then by default, most marketing teams get stuck into. And the false struggle starts with, we assume we have an ads problem, right? We have a content problem. That was the wrong headline on that page. Like, that was your mistake. They're like, how many times have we been in a meeting, the CEO's like, well, your headline's wrong, right? Like, they focus on that tactic focused marketing. But this is where I differ too, because I call it the bullshit. When a company finally realizes it, and most do, they go, well, we're going to go from lead-based to account-based, right? But not much changes within the organization. They're still doing the same BS marketing. They're just doing it to accounts now. And then my big thing that I hate is they go, oh, well, account-based isn't working. we're going to go do this. Brand creates demand. We're going to go run brand now as their next like approach, right? So they run ungated content, they ungate their ebooks, they run ads, they're doing content distribution, but it's this false struggle. You're stuck in this false struggle that still assumes you have a content ads awareness problem. And the reality is you don't. What you need to realize as a marketing team is growth isn't something you do. You can't do it. If it was doing it, 8 out of 10 startups wouldn't go out of business, right? We wouldn't be talking about all those SaaS companies that get money and go under, right? It's something you attract. And that's the mind shift that marketing needs to have. True scalable growth is something you attract by the brand you become. And that's why we focus more on the messaging and things like that, because that's where it's going to start. Or we talk about the narrative a lot, right? A lot of the really hard stuff that doesn't happen overnight. That's a 6 to 12 month process. A lot of marketers don't want to talk about.
Look, man, it's a cliche, but it's real, right? Everybody's saying that, like, oh, well, we need revenue tomorrow, right? Like, we need to hit the number this quarter. We need to,
Yeah.
It's a cliche that you end up chasing these short-term goals, but it's also a very real one. And so I think your point is 100% valid, that it is a massive issue. I would take a slightly different approach to it, but we actually are, not completely surprisingly in similar areas here. So if somebody's asking me, what's the biggest mistake marketers make? I would look in the mirror and I would say, well, let me start with what's the biggest mistake I make. And the biggest mistake I make over and over again is that I don't insist enough on getting all the way there with the fucking story before I try to go all the way with all the other stuff. Now, of course, you have to do shit in parallel. Like, nobody is afforded this luxury where it's just like, all right, I'm going to take some time off to figure out this narrative. Like, that's not what I'm saying, right? But as you're doing stuff in parallel, if you aren't nailing either some version of like old game, new game, or category design, or another strong narrative for your business that you actually know resonates with your audience, irrespective really of like the product you have and product market fit and all the other buzzwordy shit, then you won't ever, in my opinion, have that growth lever.
Yep.
Like it's so fundamental, right? Like you have to in parallel do all the shit. Like you do have to, and it's okay to play like, what'd you call that game? Tugboat?
The tugboat. Yep. Tugboat marketing. Yep.
Like so, and we accept playing tugboat marketing for a while, right? But the problem is you get stuck playing it forever.
Yep.
And then you have to pile on and you still can't scale it. And then everybody in the company gets frustrated why you can't do that. And the here's the real reason why this like story thing is the most important thing to get right. And it's not the mistake I'm making, and the mistake that other marketers are making is not that they don't try or that they aren't aware, that they haven't, paid attention to ad you're asking or whatever. It's that they don't go all in internally up against whatever they're up against to say, this has to be nailed. They don't fight that battle all the way through. I don't fight that battle. I'm not strong enough internally to fight that battle. That is the biggest mistake I make. And so I just like, oh, okay, like, all right, we'll settle for this for now, then we'll come back to some version of that. That is the most costly mistake, because not only is it the shit that informs your marketing, it is what creates the alignment in your company. It is exactly what Andy says, which is, remember, the company story is the company strategy.
I think we're actually saying the same thing, honestly, for the most part. I think there's just a lot of marketers that get stuck in what I said that we kind of diminish a little bit, which is that tactic-focused marketing, right? Because that's what everybody thinks the problem is, right? Nobody wants to admit they don't know how to talk to their market and things like that. So where you're saying it's messaging per se, where I agree with you, and I think I'm saying it's that marketing hasn't figured out how to scale revenue, and typically one of it is because they're stuck in that tactic focused marketing as the big challenge, right? They only know how to scale leads. God forbid leads go down, right? But the more you scale the leads, the lower your win rate becomes. Like, I have customers now, they were getting 200-300 demos a month. We're getting 80 demos a month, and they're 3xing their pipeline goals, right? And we're figuring out how to actually scale that. And all we're focusing on is messaging, positioning, and the narrative as the first step. And then what happens from there, right? We expand across the funnel. And then the other thing we do that a lot of marketers struggle, I should say maybe companies struggle to admit, is when those things start to plateau, it's usually not a marketing issue as much as, right, you have to expand your TAM. You need new product feature capabilities. Competitors have caught up to you, right? It's usually not a marketing issue when you get out of the tactic focused marketing. It becomes very difficult to admit.
Yeah.
I'm surprised how close we were on this together.
Yeah.
As a very similar, because what we tried to go in and say, don't tell me, I won't tell you. And we thought we were gonna have these wildly different opinions, and
well, I'm not completely surprised though, because even though you and I come at it from different sides, I do think we see the same stuff, you know. And the thing, I think the thing that we're both saying is really that the foundational stuff is critical. Growth has been confused, like you said, right? It's been confused as something you do.
Yep.
As opposed to it being something you attract.
100%.
Growth is still being thought of as something you turn on.
Yep.
And that's just straight up wrong.
The tactics, when you have the right growth lever, are fuel to that growth lever, right? So when I say scalable, predictable, up and to the right, when you have the right messaging combinations and the right growth lever that starts to show that uptrend, paid is just fuel to it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the shift that we talk about, where you're adding fuel to the fire. A lot of people are using these tactics as their fire, right? They're trying to make it the growth lever. And that's the huge miss right now in so many marketing orgs. And I think it'll be 3 years before what we're talking about really comes home, because I think there's going to be a massive shift in 3 years when the money kind of dries up. There's less, right? We're in an explosion right now. Well, we're going to reach parity here, I think, very quickly. There's a lot of SaaS companies selling a lot of the same things to a lot of the same people, and it ain't going to work much longer, in my opinion.